Hi there. In this video I'm going to demonstrate some techniques for colorizing a grayscale image of a digital sculpture. This tutorial is for beginners, but you do need some basic level understanding of an image editor such as Photoshop. Now let's say you've completed a sculpture that you're happy with, but you'd like to flesh it out a little more with some color and shading. A quick method of doing this would be to export the grayscale image to an image editor such as Photoshop and color it from there. So within your sculpting software, we're going to export a screen grab, or you can use a screen grab software. In this case, I'm using ZBrush, so we can open up the document window, go to export, and I'm going to choose a JPEG, and you can name it and export it. Incidentally, if you want to learn how to do a sculpture like this, check out the other tutorial on my channel called Intro to Beginning Sculpting. Open up your photo editing software and import or load your image. I'm using Affinity Photo, but most software of this type will do. They also share similar tools, functions, and even some hotkeys. Now the first thing you're going to want to do is possibly crop your image. So that's what I'm going to do now. In this case, I'm using the C key in Affinity Photo. And just adjusting it to where I want it to be. And click Apply. To make the process a little cleaner, I'm going to use the Flood Selection tool and select the gray background. So that's W on this program. I'm going to select it, then I'm going to invert the selection and create a new pixel layer. This will help us in the coloring of the model and to help color within the bounds of the model, so you don't have to race beyond the edges of the model if you don't want to. It's time to think about the base color of your character. Select the Flood Selection tool and pick a color. I can go up to my swatches. I'm just going to use colors here. Use this as a base. And I'll go for something kind of tannish brown and fill it in. We want to be able to see the shaded model underneath, and while you can adjust the opacity of the layer, I like choosing a different blend type. So those are found right here. There's normal. I'm going to use multiply. You can see it shows the gray shaded model underneath, but you could also use overlay. It just depends on which one you like better. But I'm choosing multiply. If you're not happy with the color you've picked, you can refill it, or a more flexible method is to use an adjustment layer and hue, saturation, and levels. And here you can just slide one of the sliders and go through a range of colors real easily. For now, I think I'll just leave it about where it was. I'll also leave this selection mode, this adjustment mode selected, so I can keep adjusting it if I want further down the line. Now let's erase the area of color for the mouth and eyes. They will be getting their own paint layer. You can put all the colors on one layer if you want, but breaking them out into separate layers gives you the control to make changes easily. So I'm going to check the erase tool, and I'm going to erase the color within that area. And I'll go up to the eyes and do the same. With the selection outline still active, create a new pixel layer above the hue saturation adjustment layer. And you're going to fill it with a 50% gray. So I have a gray palette here, and there was they call it black 50%. But you could also bring up your palette and just get the slider going that way. If you're using hue saturation, it's 128, 128, 128. And we're going to fill it in. Now we're going to set the blend mode to overlay. And you'll notice nothing looks like it's changed. And that's because the gray is acting like a neutral color. Any tones we add on top of this will lighten it, or any lighter tones we add on top of this will lighten it, and any darker tones will darken what's underneath. The easiest tool to use for this is the Dodge and Burn brush. Select Dodge and start going over certain areas of model. In this case, I'm hitting kind of the upper parts, give them some highlights. I'm using a very soft brush radius. We're kind of going to be painting in some lighting, and also I want to draw some attention to the face while leaving other areas of the model kind of set back. So I'm going to make the face portions a little lighter. And this upper areas of the horn, almost like a light is hitting it from up above. And with the Dodge tool selected, if you hold down the Alt key on Windows, it'll select the burn brush and give you the opposite effect. So you can see I'm kind of painting in some shadows. Back to my Dodge brush. I'm going to hit a little highlight on the shoulder there. You can see how it's already making certain aspects of the sculpture pop a little more when I turn that on and off. I'm going to reduce my brush size and catch a little bit of the ear. Darken it a little bit in there. Same thing on the other side. And catch some of the details. The great thing is you can always go back to this layer. Because it's its own layer, we can work non-destructively in that sense. I'm going to darken a little bit under the horn here. Yeah. If you'd like to erase some of this, I mean, you can try going over it with the opposite of the brush you just used. But another way, if you just use a regular brush, is to pick a 50% gray, because remember that's like a neutral color. And you just paint over it, and it acts like it's erasing the shading you just did. So you don't have to you actually use the eraser brush. You can just use a gray 50% gray with a regular brush. you don't like some of the shading, you could also use a blur brush to kind of soften some of the edges you just painted in. I'm now going to add the color for the teeth and the gums. So I'm going to zoom into the mouth area. Underneath the highlights layer, I'm going to add a new pixel layer. And make sure my brush is selected, and I'll pick an appropriate gum color for this character. I'm going to set the blending mode to multiply again. And just start painting. Right now I'm just treating it as a kind of like a color by numbers. I'm not really adding any shading just yet. Okay, now I'm going to pick an appropriate, hopefully, color for the teeth. I don't want them to be perfectly white. Maybe a little lighter. Okay, so now on the highlight layer, I'm going to go back to my burn and dodge brush. And I'll create a little darkening around where the teeth enter the gums. And a little highlighting on some of the teeth and the gums. Okay, now I'm going to move up to the eyes. I'm going to label this layer mouth and create a new pixel layer. Label this eyes. Again, you don't have to do it exactly this way, but I like to have the control of having different components on different layers. I'm going to set this to multiply as well. And I'll start experimenting with some eye color here. Oops. Bring out my brush, my color brush. Maybe bring a little brighter yellow into the center. And a little darker kind of at the edges. Now I'm going to go up to my highlights layer again and select my burn and dodge brush again. I'm going to color in the pupil, and my character has pupils anyway. Maybe add a little highlight. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the way this is coming along, but I'd like to add some more variation or color breakup on the skin. And of course I can go in there and just paint with little spots or spatter brushes and things like that. But there's another technique I like to use, which is bringing in another image and laying that over and adjusting the blending mode to get the effect I want. So in this case, I'm going to show you, I have this image of rust. And you could use anything, you could use dirt, but I like playing around with different types of metal, rust, and things like that, corrosion. So I'm going to bring that in and just lay it over it. As you can see, it's I have it between the eyes and the mouth layer. I could play around with the different blending modes, but in this case I think I like overlay. So now I'm going to my rust layer and adjust the scale of this. And you can play around with whatever image type you have on there. Move it around, see where you like the breakup. But that looks pretty good to me. Now I'll just turn this into a rasterized layer. So another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use Affinity Photo's version of the liquify, just to make it seem a little less flat, like it's conforming more to their underlying forms. I'll show you what I mean. It's called Liquify Persona. Click on that. Just my tool. And I'm just trying to make it feel like it's following the contours of the model a little bit. You don't absolutely have to do this, but I felt like I like what it added to it. Okay, then I'll just click apply. And there we have that layer done. I'm also going to go back to my background layer, select my selection brush, go up to the pixel layer. I'm just going to delete out all the image of the rust around the model. I don't really need that anymore. I'm also going to, on this layer, create a new mask. Go back to my brush tool. Select my grays here. I'm going to start painting in where I want all that rust to appear. So using mask layers is a good way to get some control over where these textures appear. So now I'm going to apply the same technique to texture the horns, but using a different image. Here I have an image of some tree bark. So just let me drag that into the image. And I'll play around with the blending modes. I think I'll go for overlay again. Maybe soft light. I'm going to adjust the size of this. And I'll even rotate it to try to follow the angle of the horns a little better. change its aspect ratio. Okay. So now I'm going to duplicate this layer and move it over to do the other side of the horn. Rotate it. Now I'm just going to merge it down. I have to rasterize it first, excuse me. So they're on one layer. Now I'm going to do that liquefy trick again. I want it to feel like those grooves are kind of wrapping around the shape of the horn. Okay, let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to do that trick again where I'm going to select the base color, base gray, go up to, I'm just going to label this horns. And delete out the area I don't want. I'm going to create a new mask layer and paint out where I don't want the horn texture to be. But what I do like to do is play around with inverting some of these textures. If you're finding you're not liking the look of the texture you've added, in this case I feel like it's a little too reddish, you could always add another adjustment layer. Here I'm just going to add a hue saturation levels layer. And I've had it just desaturated a little bit. It's affecting the whole image right now, but I can also just drag it onto the rust layer I added and play with these settings again. If you feel some of the highlights and shadows you painted have gotten a little muted or lost, we can always add another pixel layer. Pick the 50% gray, fill that in and set that to overlay, and then going back to our dodge and burn brush, it'll actually add to that layer as well. As you can see, you can do as many of these layers as you want to kind of pump up some of the brightness or shadows that you've initially created on the layer below. One of the final touches I like to add is to add another pixel layer and pick my brush, just my regular brush, pick a white color, and I'm going to set the hardness to 100 so that way the edges aren't as soft, and make sure I pick white. Let's zoom in, and I'm just going to add some highlights. This is just on a regular normal blend mode. And they'll really help make certain areas like his eyes, and I'll do it on his teeth as well. Pop. We're just trying to emulate kind of the gloss or shininess that isn't present in the render. I'm going to conclude this demo here. Hopefully you've picked up a few techniques that you'll apply to your own projects. If so, be sure to let me know by leaving a like or subscribing to this channel. I appreciate your time and thanks for watching.